It's based on trust, supporting each other, having open communication.
Welcome to another episode of the Community Broadband Bits podcast. I'm Christopher Mitchell at the Institute for Local Self-Reliance in St. Paul, Minnesota. But today I'm at Gila River Indian Community at the National Tribal Telecommunications Association. And I'm speaking with Kristen Johnson, the Telephone Operations Manager at the Hono O'odham Utility Authority. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I feel like I've met so many great people from TOUA, which I guess some people just say TO. Is that right?
Yes, that's right.
So to Hono O'odham Utilities Authority. And you have been doing broadband for a while, but let's just start with what is Tohono O'odham?
Okay. Tohono O'odham, the meaning behind the name is people of the desert. So we're the Tohono O'odham Utility Authority, and our company services electric, water, telephone, propane, internet, and cellular for members of the Tohono O'odham Nation. And the Tohono O'odham Nation is nestled in the southwest Arizona. We are 4,400 square miles, so we're roughly the size of Connecticut. And we have roughly about 70 miles of our land that's adjacent to the U.S.-Mexico border.
And you have on the order of 4,000 people on an area the size of Connecticut.
Actually, we serve about 4,000 people for broadband and telephone. Our membership, I believe, is around 38,000.
Oh, okay. So you're quite large.
Yeah, so like about half of that live on tribal lands and the other half live off of tribal lands. So we don't serve everybody with telephone and broadband, but we do have about 4,000 members.
And that utility does so many different things. Are you serving most of those members then?
Yes, absolutely.
With something?
Yes.
And let's talk about how you got into telephone. You were one of the original NTTA members, from what I can tell. I think of you as being old school. There's a lot of newcomers coming along. How did you get into it?
Right. So my predecessors at the time, we were under Mountain States, and we had a few party lines that, they served. So in 1986, so about 40 years ago, the tribe chartered us to become a telephone company. We acquired what little plant was available through Mountain States. And then we built our own copper platform based on that to start serving all of the villages. There's 72 villages on our reservation, so we serve all of them with telephone. In 1998, we started a partnership with, at that time, Cell One. Went through Altel and now Verizon, so we're a reseller for them for cellular. And then in 1999, we started our ISP. Those are the three major parts of the communication that I oversee. There's other department heads that oversee everything else. You
made a comment on the stage that you try to do everything that you ask your staff to do.
Exactly. So I do. I truly believe that I would never ask my staff to do something that I couldn't physically or wouldn't ever do. So, and I hope that they instill that in their staff that, if it's too cumbersome, speak up. Let's find resources to help us get there. But for the most part, let's try,
When did you come into the authority?
I started with TOUA in 2000. I came in as a customer service representative, and then I became a supervisor of our business solution. And then in 2010, I became the operations manager. So I oversee our central office, I oversee our outside plant, our network operations, the ISP, and sales.
This is an area that strikes me as just being incredibly difficult. We're talking about an area that is very low density. And trying to serve that, especially back in the day with DSL, must have been a nightmare.
Yes. We did start out with 56K. And we still have a lot of areas that are unserved. And it is my plan and my goal to have our entire reservation with fiber by the end of 2024.
Wow. I thought you might say the end of the 2020s.
No. We, with the help of the Obama administration, we were recipients of the BIP, the ARA grants, loan grant at the time. So
this was after the fallout of the 2008 emergency where,
yes.
Not a lot of tribes got that money. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just want to make sure people are familiar with what time frame we're talking about.
No, you are fine. And we built out about 50% to our most populated areas. We went idle after the requirement in 2015 for build out. And then in 2018-19, we started up again to finish off the rest of it. And then we have been, very blessed to be recipients of NTIA Reconnect 3, Arizona Broadband funding to help us finish out the rest.
Well, I think it's got to be one of those things that you're blessed, but it's also a matter of having been well prepared because of having made those previous investments and then stewarding them along the way.
Absolutely.
There's a couple of things also for your presentation that I wanted to note. One is I'm curious if you can just tell us a little bit more about, were you in 2018 before more money became available? Were you just, I don't know if you were getting money from the state or were you just reinvesting some of the funds that you had? How were you paying for the resumption in 2018?
So we became, because we're an ILEC and ETC, incumbent telephone company, and we're ILEC, so we're federally regulated. We're not a CLEC, so we don't report to the states. But we receive money through the Connect America Fund, too. So we have obligations to build out as well to provide speeds of 25 download, 3 megabytes upload. So that's where we're getting that's where we started to get a lot of the funding to do that. But since we were able to acquire more, we can fast track this and make sure that our tribe is modernized with technology.
And so even though you had a kind of a low standard you had to meet, you chose to invest in fiber optics.
Yes.
With that. We've seen a number of the smaller non-tribally owned companies do that, and I'm sure there's some other tribes that are, I would hope, doing that as well.
Yeah.
Because I sometimes hear from people and they're frustrated at, because is that part of the alternative, the ACAM model?
Yes.
The ACAM, and I see people saying, well, it's terrible. That's a 25.3 minimum, and it should be higher. And I'm like, yeah, but most of them are building fiber from what I can tell, so it's going to be okay.
Yeah, because under the legacy that we used to operate on, the minimum was 10 megabytes download, 1 megabyte upload. With the Reconnect 3 funding, it's 100 megabytes download and I think 20 megabytes upload. So the standards are increasing. So we hope to be able to keep up with that. We're also building a wireless infrastructure. If the pandemic taught us anything, it really displayed our flaws as a company that we weren't able to turn up wireless services at the drop of a hat. So we have been investing in we went after the 2.5 spectrum. We received it. So we're pushing that out through a buy-sells network. And then in areas that we didn't get the license, we're going with an unlicensed spectrum on the 3.65 under the same.
Which I think probably works really well for you. I mean, first of all, for people who aren't familiar with this part of the country, you don't have a lot of water in the air. You don't have a lot of big trees. I will say the density of the cactuses, the saguaros, is far greater than anything that I imagined. So
Right. We do have some mountains as well that, but we, for the most part, we weren't looking at a mobility portion of it. We were looking more at something in relation to the village itself. So we were serving the village, not the outskirts, so that everything from that center point or wherever we put the wireless unit will serve the entire community for that village.
And how many villages do you have? Like, are there quite a few?
We have 72, but we serve 54 of the 72.
Okay. It's wild to me. I mean, in December, I was out there with my family in parts of Arizona near Tucson, and it's remarkable. And I have to say, I was really excited to see the saguaros, and I just had no idea what they were like. But I can't imagine. You were just telling me earlier how beautiful it is in May. But with getting avoiding the ridges, but getting a tower up, I have to assume that you get very good wireless performance because of you don't have to deal with like trees, leaves. You just have the ridges really to deal with. I'm guessing. Other than that, you have pretty good line of sight, I would hope.
No, it's perfect. It's perfect for that setup.
And so, what kind of capacity can you deliver over the wireless system, over the 2.5?
Right now we're delivering 250 megabytes. It has more capacity than that, but we're still in the early phases of it, just trying to see what we want to deploy for those areas and what is the need, because if we have fiber there, this will just serve as redundancy for that.
How are you dealing with payment? With utility authority, I'm guessing you charge people for lots of different services. Are you charging for internet access?
We are. We're currently charging for internet access because the cost to get internet to us is we're getting it through Lumen, and it's quite expensive. So we are part of NECA, so we do follow their tariffs for high cost loop support.
And that's NECA for people who aren't familiar.
Yes.
Which I don't remember what that is. There's actually multiple NECAs, but there's a telecommunications NECA that people can look up if they so desire.
Exactly. But we are also promoting heavily the ACP, the Affordable Connectivity Program. We are going door to door. We're sharing that information and getting our tribal members to take advantage of it because it's a $75 credit off of their internet. So in a lot of cases, they can get the internet service for free.
How is that working out for you?
It's working out great. In the beginning, when we were just relying on social media, the radio, those types of things, I think people didn't believe it. It was too good to be true. Who would ever give me $75? But as we're going door to door and we're talking to them and sharing this, I think it's more believable. They're coming and we're getting about 30 people signed up each month.
And are you finding it's an administrative headache to go through that, or is the sign-up process working better for you? A mix?
It's a little bit of both. Yeah. So I'm not the one going out door to door. My staff is, but because it leaves us very short-staffed, I then pick up the slack in the front office. So, it's just everybody's wearing multiple hats. And so it's a little bit of both. It's great to be out there doing this. And once it's done, it's done. But in the interim, we just got to bear through it.
One of the things that you had mentioned, and I'm saving my favorite for last, we're going to talk about tribal politics. But before that, you had mentioned something that we harp on a lot, which is that you have an older network, and a lot of times older networks don't have great documentation. You don't always know where everything is, and we've heard that from others with utilities, like the water systems underground, and they don't always have great maps of where it had been. So you're using the opportunity as you're expanding this network to develop a better map of all of the things you oversee. How does that work?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So, this started a long time ago and we've stumbled across it. I mean, just stumbled and had obstacle after obstacle. But what we've done is through our engineering company, Palmetto, they introduced us to Esri. And for tribal nations, under BIA, you can get the Esri license for free.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So we took advantage of that and we use the Esri platform. So we go out when we're designing a place for fiber. We have to get everything. So because the water's in our company, the electric's in our company, most of our electric is overhead. So that's easier. The water's unknown. So we're potholing everything and we're collecting that data as we find it. And then we're just keeping everything. I mean, everything. We're getting corners of the house, corners of the fence, corners of property, water, size of water, old copper, then of course where our fiber is going. So that's all the data that we're collecting. Then we pass it off to our engineering company who then puts that all on the staking sheet so that when we're going out, we don't stand a chance to run into that. We're also noting any archaeological sites in some of the more traditional villages. We're able to note that and keep it for us, for future use or future reference. So that hasn't existed. We have a lot of water lines in the ground that we have no idea are there until we hit it. And you heard today, sometimes you flood the yards, we're wasting all this precious water. So we're hoping that by collecting all this data, not just for the water department, but for ourselves, that, we can protect it going forward.
When you say potholing, my understanding of that is limited, but I'm familiar with it where, like, if you're coming down a street and you're doing some underground boring, generally you'll pothole where you know that a utility line is crossing it, but you don't know where your utility lines always are. So how are you doing the potholing?
So what we're doing is we're finding the water meter and we pothole at the water meter, and then we're assuming it's a straight line back. Yep. And so we pothole every 5 feet just to make sure if it should veer off or tee off somewhere, that we're catching that back to the main. And then our the main lines, the water department will come in and find those. But the service lines, the lines on the customer property, we're using that method. We don't always do perfect on the customer property because sometimes it's a water hose underground or it's I don't know, makeshift piping.
Yeah, anyone who's working with random people on their homes knows that there's weird things underground.
Yeah, so that's how we're doing it. Just the high pressure water, opening up the earth just a little bit enough to see, capture the data, and then we're using survey grade type so that we're within centimeters of what it is when we have it on a map.
Yeah. A friend of mine, Travis, who runs USA Fiber in Minneapolis, they must have done this to 60,000 homes now underground. And they, my favorite thing that they've hit so far is an old refrigerator, probably like 70, 80 years old.
We've hit a lot of burn pits, but we get nervous. So then we have to report them back to our cultural preservance office to let them know and give us clearance to move on. But you had mentioned the saguaros earlier. We have to be very cautious of those because they're protected plants.
Right.
So the fines for destroying a saguaro is like $25,000 a foot.
Wow. And they have extensive root structures.
Yes. And they go like 100 feet plus. So 25,000, you knock one out and don't report it. Yes. It's expensive.
Yeah, I'm sure that that your crews are very careful. Though. I mean, one of the things I found is people down here, everyone loves the saguaros and wants to make sure because they're threatened, from multiple ecological changes and things like that. And I was fascinated to know that you occasionally get freezes, and you can tell that because the saguaros have they'll hold that in their history for a very long time.
Yep.
So the fun question then, which we'll see how much you want to speak to particulars versus being more general. But this is something that I'll say, like, I got a very hard email from someone that I really liked regarding an issue with tribal politics where someone just really got screwed over. And it sucks to hear. And when I made a mention of that on Monday, there was several people in the room who were just nodding their heads. And so you specifically mentioned this on stage that we got to keep politics out of this. So what brought that to mind?
So yesterday on stage, the question was if there was a message I could send myself when I first got into the industry, what would it be? And I said to avoid tribal politics. Just over the years, a lot of times politicians get into it. And I don't think that in the industry we're in is going to be solved by politics. It's more of a technical issue. And that's what I meant, that, until you understand it, political views, political stances aren't going to remedy the problem. It has to be a technical remedy. Right.
You're looking at a technical problem of like you have some amount of money. We're going to use it to connect this home. How are we going to do it in an efficient way? And that's a question for people that are not political to be wrestling with.
Yes. Yeah. To trust us that, we're doing everything by all means to keep the costs low so that we're not passing on any unnecessary costs to the members and that we're using the money wisely so that we avoid fraud, abuse, and waste.
Now, I'm curious about this because one of the things that when Matt and I were working on the tribal broadband boot camps, we've really wanted to do is try to avoid any kind of political leadership coming to our events because we felt like it was so much easier to have engineers and outside plant people and people who are just trying to solve the problem. Like you said, we want them to be connecting with each other across tribes and across any other kind of boundaries, whereas political leaders might have reasons not to want to work with this tribe or that tribe or that sort of a thing. So now I'm hearing that some people would like us to do leadership events where we are bringing in tribal councils. And I'm curious if you would have any advice in terms of talking with them about what are things that are perhaps unnecessary politics that are brought into this sometimes.
Right. So I agree. I think there should be a training for tribal politics because I don't think they know the boots on the ground effect. Getting into some of the things that you face in the industry. So, like the switching that takes place, the trenching, there's a place for them in it, when it comes to right-of-ways, when it comes to archaeological sites, to permits. Okay, I get it. But I do think that they need to be educated because it's not all about politics or money. It's more of a different type of investment. It's a mental investment, and it's something that's going to help us later on. So I do think that they should be educated. I really, really do, because I think that's where the misconception comes, is in their mind they have this idea formulated that's totally off base. And I would hate to have any tribal leader, speak to it and just be in the vision that they don't know what they're talking about.
One of the things that came to mind is I think a need to help them understand the challenges of working with NTIA. And I think we've lost several people who had told tribal leadership, we're getting this money around this time. And then a year later, the money hasn't arrived and they look like they don't know what they're doing. Yeah. But it's not their fault. They didn't know that there was going to be these delays, right? We have statutes that say the money will be out by a certain time and there's complications. And so that's one of those things I feel like, you have 20 years of experience in this, and I'm guessing you probably have a sense of when you're telling leadership something will happen. You probably don't tell them that until you have certainty that it's really going to happen.
Exactly. And that's true. I mean, we have publications because we're a recipient of the Arizona Commerce Broadband grant that they had. Mm-hmm. We were announced. It was public a few months ago. So I think everybody was under the assumption, well, TOUA got their money. Right. They're ready. We were named with Cox and a few others. Well, they couldn't award us until U.S. Treasury gave them the money. I mean, they weren't going to give money they didn't have. So you're right. But when publications go out, these ideas start to formulate that, oh, they have money, they should get started. Why are they dragging their feet? Mm-hmm. Well, we really didn't get it. And, so I think that's, a portion that they need to learn, that it's not always because it's announced. I mean, I think they get excited and they want, the publicity. But in reality, we're still waiting on the federal government too.
There's also a dynamic that happens all over the place. Local governments in non-tribal areas where I feel like you get a big award and people are like, well, why is that money all going to them? And, you're talking about, you now have a lot of experience with this over all the years and, since Obama, the ARA programs. I'm curious, did you ever run into that where people were like, wow, like you have all this money in a bank account, like we could use it for this, we could use it for that, and they may not appreciate all the reporting requirements and things like that?
Fortunately for us, we haven't had that, but I think they, the eyebrows do go up and wonder, what does TOUA do with all their money? Mm-hmm. We're audited just like anybody else. Our information, our financial information is given to our tribal government to see that, exactly where every dollar went. So when it comes to grant dollars, you use it up. I mean, there's a lot of times you end up putting in some of your own because it's not enough.
Right.
You have different obstacles that you face. And like right now, the supply chain, and the cost of everything is going up. When we applied for these grant dollars, the costs were lower. And now that we're here, fast forward, the costs have increased. So you can almost bet you're going to have to start putting in some of your own money in to make sure that the obligation is fulfilled.
Right. And even though the project might be expensive, I mean, you're a larger tribe, so the amounts that you got are probably in proportion, but some of the tribes in California might be looking at an amount that is multiple times their yearly budget, and that's all coming in one check. And so it's kind of overwhelming. Yeah. I'm curious, one last question then. You have a great staff that I've gotten to know somewhat over the tribal broadband boot camps. Do you have any advice for like how you've been able to attract and develop that local talent to get them interested and to keep having the staff so you're not having to bring in contractors from Tucson or something to get your work done?
It's based on trust. Mainly that, supporting each other, having open communication. I am very, very blessed to have the staff that I have, especially my leadership. The entry-level positions are a little more harder to come by. I think everybody's facing that. No one wants to work, or whatever reason, we're not getting it. But, my leadership, they're very young, but they're very strong. When my time has come for me to move on, I don't want the decision for my replacement to be made easy. I want them all to apply. I want them all to feel that they have a chance at it, and make it hard for whoever's interviewing to select my replacement.
Right.
But they all have a different skill set. I will never claim to know everything. And when I do have meetings, they are usually with me because they're the ones that know, Vendors, I don't generally speak to vendors because you need to talk to my staff who are involved in it. And when you sell them, they know the process. They know where to come for support. So that's how I operate. And I hope that's why they stay with me and they let me lead them.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time today.
All right. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We have transcripts for this and other podcasts available at muninetworks.org/broadbandbits. Email us at podcast@muninetworks.org with your ideas for the show. Follow Chris on Twitter. His handle is @CommunityNets. Follow muninetworks.org stories on Twitter. The handle's @muninetworks. Subscribe to this and other podcasts from ILSR, including Building Local Power, Local Energy Rules, and the Composting for Community podcast. You can access them anywhere you get your podcasts. You can catch the latest important research from all of our initiatives if you subscribe to our monthly newsletter at ilsr.org. While you're there, please take a moment to donate. Your support in any amount keeps us going. Thank you to Arnie Hughesby for the song Warm Duck Shuffle, licensed through Creative Commons. This was the Community Broadband Bits podcast. Thanks for listening.